Welcome to our lesson on multiplying decimals. Remember to take notes along with me as we're learning. So there are actually 4 steps to multiplying decimals. The very first step is to line up the numbers all the way to the right. Decimal points do not need to be lined up. So for example, if I'm multiplying 1 and 25 hundredths by 2 and 5 tenths, what I would do is go ahead and write out the top number, and then I would multiply it, making sure that I'm lining the numbers up to the right. So what I mean is that these numbers are lined up. And what the second part of that first note means is that the decimals don't need to be lined up. One's over here, one's over there. This is unusual because with adding and subtracting, it was super important to line them up, but with multiplying, it actually doesn't matter. Okay, next step, multiply like normal. So in other words, we're just going to go ahead and ignore the decimal point. Next step, count the number of digits to the right of the decimal. So even though in step number 2 we're ignoring the decimal points, we know that they still exist. So I would need to count the number of decimals or digits to the right of the decimal, and then I'm going to add them. So in my example up here, this was to the right, and so was this, so that's a total of 3. And then the fourth step, because these aren't whole numbers, they actually are decimals, we've got to move the decimal in our answer to the left as many places as we counted in step 3. So we're going to shift our decimal over to the left. All right, let's go ahead and try a couple problems here. The very first question that we're going to answer is 5 and 1/10 times 2 tenths. So this is a little bit of an easy problem because they happen to line up to the right automatically on their own. So the very first step, which is, let's zoom out for a minute, line up the numbers all the way to the right, we don't even have to do in this one because they line up naturally. Step 2, multiply like normal, ignoring the decimal point. All right, that's what step we're on right now. So if I'm multiplying like normal, I am going to take the 2 and multiply by the 1. 2 times 1 is 2. And then I'm going to multiply by the 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Now, the next number is a 0, and we're going to notice a pattern with zeros. 0 times 1 is 0, but actually we'd have to have a placeholder, which I call 0 the hero. So anyways, that's our placeholder. 0 times 1 is 0, and then 0 times 5 is 0. If you have numbers that are zeros to the left of the decimal and there's nothing else over there, you actually can skip it because it's just going to end up being a bunch of zeros like we have down here. So anyways, we add. So 2 plus 0 is 2, 0 plus 0, and then 1. Now, our answer would not make any sense. 102, that's silly. 5 times 5 something times a decimal that's smaller than 1 isn't going to be over 100. So what we have to remember is that third and fourth step. These are decimals. Even though we multiply them like normal numbers, there was 1 digit behind the decimal, 2 digits behind the decimal. So I need to bump back to the left, shift to the left, 2 spaces. And I get my answer, 1 and 2 hundredths. So moving back over here, I can actually write my answer in 1 and 2 hundredths. All right, next question. Before we move on to the next question, I'm actually going to erase a little bit so that we have some more room. Oop, came back. Oh well, okay. So next question is 2 and 14 hundredths times 13 thousandths. The first thing that I would like to do is line up my numbers all the way to the right. Now, we know that you can multiply in any order. 3 times 5 is the same as 5 times 3. 2 times 10 is the same thing as 10 times 2. So we can actually rearrange these any way we want. Just because I like the way that it looks, I actually like to write the longer number on top. And you don't have to do that, but if you like to also do that, go ahead. And remember, I'm lining everything up to the right. So my 4, my 1, my decimal, and my 2. Okay. Second step on our notes tells me that we need to go ahead and ignore the decimals and just multiply like normal. So 4 times 3 is 12. Carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 0 is 0. Now, that was in our very first place value. Because I'm now multiplying with the 1 in my second place value, I need to stick my 0 the hero, my little placeholder, to bump it over one place value, just like the 1 is bumped over one place value. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. And again, I'm just going to get a bunch of zeros. Okay, we are now all the way over here. There are 2 digits to the right, so we need to put 2 0 the heroes in over here to hold our place. All right, 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 is 2, and then I'm just going to have a bunch of zeros. I'm not going to bother putting them in. 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 3 is 8. 1 plus 6 is 7. And then I've got another 2. Now again, this would be a crazy, silly answer. That's a very, very tiny number being multiplied by 2. I'm expecting a very, very tiny answer. I need to check my place values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers need to be behind the decimal. So I shift over 1, 2, 3, 4, and this looks weird, but I'm going to put an empty hoop and call it 5. Now from here, I need to fill that empty space in. Empty means nothing, which means the number 0. So my answer, this is tenths, hundredths, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. It's 2,782 hundred thousandths. That's a very small number. But this down here is very, very sloppy. I need to rewrite my number and rewrite my answer and circle it so that I'm very neat. So I will go ahead and rewrite that up here. So the answer is 0.02782. And then I'll circle it. All right, third problem. This problem says 1 5 thousandths times 7 thousandths. So I'm going to go ahead and line them up. 1 5 thousandths times 7. And then I have to add in all my decimals, 7 thousandths. Okay. 7 times 5 is 35, so I drop my 5, bring up the 3. 7 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 7 times 0 is 0. And then 7 times 1 is 7. Now, here's the tricky thing. All of these are zeros. Everything to the right was a 0, is a 0. So, realistically, I don't need to keep multiplying because what's going to happen is these are all going to be zeros. And then these are all going to be zeros. And then these are all going to be zeros. Anything, 0 times anything is 0. So I don't even have to do that step. I can just, and so I don't have to do the, adding or any of that. What I do need to do, though, is I need to figure out what my final answer is. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits that are behind the decimal, so I need to go over 6 place values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. I'm going to put my decimal and fill in my empty holes with zeros. Now again, that's very messy. We don't want a messy answer. I wouldn't really be able to read that as a teacher if you left that as your answer. So you need to make sure that you're rewriting your answers for me. 0.00735. And we've got our answer. Okay, last thing is we're going to really quickly review. Do you need to line up the decimals when you're multiplying? We know that you need to line up your decimals during addition and subtraction, but the answer is no, you do not need to line up your decimals during multiplication. We're ignoring them anyway, so we don't need to line them up. Second question, which direction do you shift the decimal in on the final product? When you have your final answer, for example, we had a final answer right here, and we need to put in our decimal, we are shifting to the left. All right, and the rest is up to you with your practice problems. Thanks for watching.